I'll start with Paul because he has been patiently waiting. You know, why is Palestine so important?
Well, it's a genocide. We're not afraid to use that word about it. And the figures, the Israelis say that it's Hamas figures, but no one actually knows the figures. I believe it's 39 something thousand is up to, but Khan Yunis is being ethnically cleansed, and that it's 10 scores more today. You can't keep count. And we're talking about not just the killed women and children. We're talking about the maimed and injured, and the numbers of that Hamas figures are 80,000 or 90,000 now, and that's not even counting those buried under the rubble that Hamas couldn't find, which could be another 50, 60,000. Who knows? So we don't even know what the figures are. But the main figures are bodies, blown apart, as George Galloway describes them. Fathers searching, scrabbling in the rubble. This sort of language is what's happening over there. People are watching it on live stream. You can just tune in and you see the horror of what's happened to that strip. It's been blown apart. So who knows what the figures are, but it's just an international outrage that everyone needs to be talking about to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people for what they're going through.
Yeah, just today, I think a marketplace in a place called Zaytun was shelled by Israeli tanks, killing people in the marketplace. And there's images of bread which people were selling, soaked with the blood. It comes to a stage, and we've been talking about this for months on this channel. It's come to a stage where me personally, I can't watch the images anymore. My heart is, as a man, and I mentioned to Paul previously, I've served in the British Army for 10 years and 5 years in the United Nations, and I seen conflict, but the images that you see right now and the weaponry that Israel is using right now on innocent women and children and men, I can't bear it anymore. I get emotional. And before I do get emotional, I really want to put the same question to John. John, why is Palestine so important?
Well, I just want to start off by saying that there's a reason why the IDF are not on people killed or injured or whatever, and that's because they're so busy killing them. And this isn't meant to be. Maybe this isn't true, but I just feel like because their aim is to clear it, they're counting how many are left, and that isn't really going too far. It might be going too far for some people, but it's not going too far if you believe that this is a genocide in progress. And I do, and I think the reason why it's so important is not just because of the scale of what's happening, but also because these are people who were refugees in the first place, who were literally put there and penned in by Israel in the first place. And there may have been other situations that have happened before, which you could describe as a genocide, but it has never been so much in plain view. So everyone sees it now, and then everyone sees the response of our leaders in excusing it, and then it puts you, well, it doesn't put me in a quandary, but it clearly puts some people in a quandary, because a lot of them are going to go out and vote for Labour despite that. So I ask myself, is this because they're not aware of this, or is it because they're, kind of just ignoring it? Oh, I can't understand it. Maybe they're so sick of, they've blocked it out of their mind entirely. But for me, the significance of Gaza is that it's probably the factor that caused me to come into this situation and to want to resist this, because it's, frankly speaking, the most horrific thing I've ever seen in my life. And the worst thing of all about it is it's still carrying on now, and we can still do nothing about it. The guys here are probably doing as much as anyone, because we're speaking up about it. We're going and speaking on the streets to everyone about it. And frankly, people are either deeply affected by it, or they just can't. I think there are some people who are still making excuses in their head. and they still believe maybe the lies that they're told. But the lies are unbelievable. I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit worked up now, and I'm glad you didn't do this question at the beginning. I'm sure Dr. Mohammed's got a lot of things to say as well.
Yeah, I've been doing shows over a couple of months now with a brother called, like I said, with Yusuf Ismail, and I've had individuals in the chat, like ostriches. Their heads are in the sand. They are in the thought process that it's the land of the Israelis or the Zionists, and they've got the right to take it back because they use biblical verses. And I get gobs. I get frustrated. Sometimes I'm lost for words that we have people from, especially from my American audience. Unfortunately, I don't want to name. Well, I am going to name the faith, the Christian evangelists who want this to quickly take part, and to happen because they're waiting for the second coming of Jesus, peace be upon him. As Muslims, we believe in Jesus, peace be upon him. So they want the temple to be rebuilt, and they want this to hurry up quickly because this is what the biblical scripture says. And my blood boils. It really does. But before I get, like I said, emotional, and I thank you, John. I really appreciate your thoughts on that. If there's anything else you want to add, feel free. Before we ask Dr. Muhammad Ali, why is Gaza so important? John, do you want to add anything? I know I cut you off.
I'm just letting my blood pressure go down. Go with Dr. Muhammad for now. I'll come back in minutes.
All right. So I'm gonna talk about something which may surprise everyone. Actually, it's probably something that you're not expecting. That's why it's going to be surprising rather than outrageous. Last week, I gave a conference presentation, and is an academic presentation, and the title was, "Is the inverted commas war on Gaza actually a war, or also a war on moral courage?" So is the war on Gaza also a war on moral courage? And what I've done is I've looked at the literature on moral courage, and I've looked at examples in terms of what's been unfolding in terms of media coverage and responses and the way people are reacting, celebrities as well, and so on. And essentially, what I'd say is Gaza is important not only for the reasons already mentioned, although that in of itself is more than enough, right? We all know that, right? But the thing is, actually, the way we're going to react, the way the West, right? The way the UK, because this is our country, right? We care about this country, but the West generally as well. The way it's going to handle this is actually going to determine and define its trajectory in the long term forever, essentially, right? So the thing is, you have a situation where moral courage, I'll just spend a couple of minutes to give you a little background so that we understand what am I, so that it's clear to everyone who's not familiar with this, where I'm going with this. Moral courage is essentially when you stand up against a more powerful actor on a point of principle, and it's very different from helping behavior. So there are two types of pro-social helping other people. You can categorize crudely pro-social behavior into helping behavior and morally courageous behavior. Now, helping behavior is when you give charity, or you give a helping hand, or you spend some time, and that's really good, right? Don't get me wrong; it's absolutely a wonderful thing to do. One of the aspects that you can consider when you were talking about helping behavior is that usually there is some sort of social benefit to doing that, especially if you promote what you're doing in public, right? So if I go to the mosque and I get out a wad of, sort of like notes, and I was like, oh, where's my money? Oh, I dropped it. Oh, I'm putting it in the charity box, and everyone's looking, right? If I do something like that, it's still helpful, right, in terms of the money's being given, right? But if people are watching me doing that, they'll think, oh, Dr. Mamdali, he's a really kind guy. He's a nice guy. Somebody might come and pat me on the back or whatever, and that kind of applies. It's just a sort of like an outrageous example. It wouldn't normally happen in any mosque, of course. But what I'm saying is essentially to illustrate the point that helping behavior can be rewardful, socially. Morally courageous behavior is very distinctive in the categorization of pro-social behavior because it's usually punished. So you've got you're morally courageous. You've got the morality aspect. So you just as an individual say, what's happening to a particular set of people or a person is just morally repugnant. It's wrong, right? And a lot of us have that natural instinct, right? We know right from wrong instinctively. But then the courage comes in because to stand up and actually say that it's wrong and speak out against it and struggle against it and try and stop it from happening and preventing it in the first place, or stopping it like needs to be done right now in Gaza, right? It needs courage. And the reason it needs courage is usually because the oppression occurs from a much more powerful actor and it's executed and implemented on a much weaker one. And that's why there's a morality issue. You're like, the weak are being oppressed, they're being taken advantage of. This is wrong morally. I need to stand up. I need to stop this. But the ones who are doing it are going to be more powerful. So I need courage. And there's usually negative consequences for the person who's morally courageous. Now, we've seen the students are doing this everywhere, right? In the US, in the UK, but you'll notice that employees are not doing that, right? Generally speaking, academics, researchers in universities are not all marching, they're not striking, they'll go on strike for pay, right? They'll go on strike for their pensions. Now, remember, I work with these. I work in a university, so maybe I'm exhibiting a bit of moral courage in talking like this as well. Practice makes perfect, right? But the thing is, they're silent. But it's the students who are actually doing this. So, either we can watch this. Now, again, whether it's a genocide, technically, we know that these guys are being massacred, right? If someone can get away with murdering someone and get off technically, it doesn't mean that it's okay, right? For some technical legal manipulation or whatever. So whether it's a genocide technically, legally, or whether it's not, it's a massacre, it's a slaughter. We see it, right? And the problem really is, apart from what it is in of itself, which is a helpless population being bombed, right, to oblivion with 2,000-pound bombs, right? I think, correct me guys if I'm wrong, but 3 times the amount of, explosives has already been thrown as compared to Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined, right? Already on Gaza. I heard that figure. I haven't verified it, but it could very well be correct. And these people can't escape. So normally you have a situation where there's a conflict, people exit, they become refugees, they escape. These people are trapped and they're being bombed and they're being slaughtered. It's as simple as that. No one can deny that, right? But whatever
also,
it is.
Also the fact that they're being starved, of course.
And starved and the medical and
exactly.
It's just it is the worst imaginable situation that a human being can. If you thought, what's the worst possible situation a human being can find themselves in? I can't think of anything worse than this. And if before this had happened, you'd ask me, I wouldn't have been able to imagine it.
Absolutely.
Because it's that bad, right? You can't imagine something like this happening anywhere in the world to anyone by anyone. Okay?
Absolutely.
But the thing is, we find that our politicians haven't got the bottle to even speak out. They can't even vote for, a ceasefire. This is the quality.
I was just going to move on to that. because I wanted to ask everybody's
This is the
opinion.
quality. This
When
is
it
the
first
moral
happened,
courage. This is the moral courage that they've got, and these are going to be the leaders of our country. What the hell are they going to do for our kids if they can't even raise a voice for those kids?
absolutely.
I mean, this is the quality of leadership this country has got.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've used our money to destroy a health service in another country when they should have been spending it on ours, and they think it's okay. I mean, the point, I like the idea of the difference between helping and moral courage, because you know, to be the first to come forward, to be the first to speak up and say these things, that's where the real courage is, because the first people spoke up in Parliament to say there ought to be a ceasefire, not this is a genocide, not the people are starving, not we've got to stop this, we've got to help them, but just to say there needs to be a ceasefire. First people who said that were shot down. People have been kicked out of the Labour Party for this. That's the kind of party that the Labour Party is. You're not allowed to speak out over it. We know they've taken money for it. We know they've been paid off. As Dr. Mohammed says, that's the moral courage that we've been being led by. I mean, I think that, you know, if you're the first to speak up against that, then you're the bravest person. But none of us are as brave as the people in Gaza, and they have no choice. So now I'm getting worked up again. But it's
you're getting me worked up too. The courage that they have shown, the Palestinians. I don't think we, as people living here in the West, could deal with the situation that they are in right now. I think we'll break straight away. We would just roll up and just claim that we got. And I'm not making fun of mental health. Kids these days, my own kids, if the internet doesn't work, if the Wi-Fi goes off for about 10 seconds or 10 minutes, it's the end of the world for them, and they're stressed out. They can't deal with it. But the people in Palestine right now, and I'll let Brother Paul deal with the situation that the people of Palestine are dealing with right now. No water, no electricity, no medical care, no food, and etc. etc. Brother Paul, I would love to talk and hear your views regarding the situation in Gaza right now. If you want to talk about it, feel free without getting worked up. And we are getting worked up, and I just want to bring the temperature down, if that's okay. Paul, go ahead. Sure.
Well, I guess it's quite the situation is. It was very well described by Chris Williamson in one of his videos before the election yesterday. I think it went out. It had an animation of him with a background behind him showing the strip actually being turned into rubble by Israeli jets in animation, and that really captured it for me in a video. So I suggest everyone has a look at that. And I just add to Dr. Mohammed Ali's point about moral courage and the feedback we've had in our campaign. Let me just change the tone a little bit. But the number of people that have when they see by flyer saying no to genocide, vote no to war, and they know we're standing for Palestine because it's got a flag on, they realise. Some of them clock it and they fist bump me. Some of them have wanted to stop me in the street, shake my hands. I got free chocolate barfi in one of the Indian shops we visited today after you left me, with people just overwhelmed with gratitude that we are the ones standing against the Labour Party, and people are just so disgusted by them, I think, in certain areas of town, that they just will not vote, and they're just looking, what can we do with our voices? How can we act? And at least we're trying to give them that.
Yeah, so the initial question was why Gaza is important, and we touched on so many different aspects of it. And you've got to be a heartless person to kind of not understand what these gentlemen just mentioned right now. You've got to be totally heartless. And I do feel that some of the people in power, as Muslims, we believe that we have to stand in front of God and be questioned upon what we did in this life. And I do feel that some of the people in power and authority right now don't have that same mindset where they have to stand in front of God and be judged for what they have done. And this is why leadership in Islam is such a heavy burden to become a leader of a nation, because you'll be questioned on the day of judgment how you dealt with your subjects and the people that you had to control. So it's a very difficult situation to be in. But I know time is at a premium. We've overhit nearly hour and 15 minutes. We have got another question, and it's a very good question, to be honest. Let me just quickly scroll up and watch it. I don't know if you guys can see the question regarding the stance regarding higher education and university fees. If you want to